Hey, y'all. Thanks for tuning in to season 2, episode 41 of the Podcast. Just give me the capacity for joy, whatever that looks like. And so, when you're in a space where you've experienced trauma, you've accepted that that trauma is happening to you or has happened to you, and you're trying to go through a healing journey or get to a place of a better mental health scenario. Oftentimes we get in our heads that we just need to be stronger. Like if I was just stronger, I'd be able to endure this. If I was just stronger, I'd be able to heal from this. If I were just fill in the blank with whatever that thing is that you think would make you stronger, then you wouldn't have to do this. And that's like a white knuckling type of thing. It's like, I'm just going to endure this and push through this until I get to a space where I'm strong enough to be able to deal with the aftermath of this thing. But I would argue and encourage you that when you're going through your space of healing, you're not healing to be able to endure or handle the trauma. You are used to those traumas. You're used to the space that you're in, and you get to a mind frame that says, if I could just get to a better and stronger and more have more fortitude in this mental space, then I would be able to handle more. But you're not healing to be able to handle more of the trauma you're used to. You're healing to build the capacity to be able to experience a life of happiness and joy. And because you're so accustomed to the experiences that trauma comes with and the habits that you have to build because of the trauma that you've experienced and the procedures that you have to go to get yourself to a space to be able to endure, you don't even know that a life of abundance and happiness and joy is on the other side of this. And so when we get into that space, we think in our heads, like, this is just going to take more strength. This is just going to take more endurance. This is just going to take more tenacity. And the reality is that's what kept us in the trauma that we were experiencing in the first place. Those type of thought processes are what keeps us in toxic relationships, are what keeps us in spaces and places that are not meant for us, because we think that if we can just learn how to do more of this other thing that that person is saying that they need, then maybe perhaps the traumatic experience won't just be that traumatic, right? If we can just be good enough for that person, if we can just be good enough for the space or places, if we can just convince the person who's creating that trauma for us that they don't need to do that anymore and for them to heal, then we would be in a better space. But you're digging into what that requires from you as opposed to what it can allow you to unshoulder, right? You have to get accustomed and used to what joy and happiness feels like and what that would require from you, what choices you would have to make in order for that to be the case. And so, when I think about the traumatic experiences that I've had, having, a grandparent who molested his children and some of his grandchildren, like I used to think, well, maybe if, we could help him heal him, even at a really young age, then he could be the type of grandparent or parent that all of these people deserve. But the level of pain and toxicity that was oozing from him was not something that was for us to fix. And so it would have taken, in my brain, it would have taken copious amounts of strength to get him to be somebody different. But in reality, the only way to experience joy and happiness in that space was to let go of an image of this perfect family that I had in my head, right? And the same thing was true of having the childhood that I had, though if from on paper and from the outside, it may have looked like this perfect little childhood. There were so many things inside of it that I was like, well, if I can just be perfect, if I can just be better, if I can just become stronger and more of something, then I'll be able to make this situation better. And even being in the toxic relationships that I was in, I carried that into those as well. If I can just be more of what this person needs, if I can just be better, then this person will want to change the way they are. And so, even after exiting those spaces and placing myself into different circumstances, the initial parts of my healing journey said, you just need to be strong enough to get your brain to a different space. You just need to be strong enough to not go back to that same patterns. But healing doesn't require you to be stronger. It, in fact, actually asks of you to be softer and to be more gentle with yourself and to allow yourself to stop feeling like you have to fight for everything and allow yourself to experience joy and happiness inside of positive spaces instead of trying to change negative spaces into something better to prove that you're worthy of that. And so once you realize that the healing journey is not more of, it's not this, I have to train to endure more. It's, I have to silence and calm my inner being in order to allow more of what should be happening in my life and experience things that are joyful and happy instead of pushing and trying to make things happen that are going to in turn hopefully make me experience something joyful or allow me to at least endure the trauma that I'm experiencing. One of the first things that you have to do in that healing journey is forgive yourself for, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, placing yourself in the spaces that caused the trauma. Because a lot of your core wounds resulted from a space that you didn't ask to be in. Your childhood was a space that you didn't ask to be in. So those core wounds that resulted from the childhood that you had are not something that you placed yourself in. But I would almost bet that you have continued to place yourself in spaces since then that give you the same feeling as that space gave you, that put new people in the places that those parental figures or figures from your childhood who were in before, who have similar qualities as them. And until you forgive yourself for the trauma that you're experiencing, you will forever punish yourself by requiring more from yourself to be strong enough to endure more of what you're enduring. So if you had a childhood experience that was from a parent, like let's use mine, a parent who was an addict. And I say this all the time just to make sure that you know that, he is now in recovery. And so these experiences aren't the experiences that I have right now, but having a parent who was an addict and feeling like if you were just good enough, they would want to stop doing what they were doing and not understanding that they were doing what they were doing to numb their emotional pain. When you get out of that household and go into your adult lives, you're going to choose somebody who has similar characteristics so you can rewrite history when someone else who isn't quite prepared to handle, an emotional relationship comes into your life, and then you handle that experience the same way by just trying to be perfect and be more and do more. And until you forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know when you were experiencing that first situation and developing the habits and patterns that allowed you to choose the second situation. And maybe it was a third and a fourth, much like mine, until you finally realized that it was a habit and a pattern that you had created. Until you forgive yourself for the things that you hold yourself at fault for causing the trauma, you can't stop punishing yourself for and being in more trauma and for being in that initial trauma in the first place. So you'll continue to try to shape shift and place yourself in spaces where you're doing more because that's the punishment that you require from yourself because you're not forgiving yourself for initially being in that situation in the first place. Remember, healing does not require you to be able to handle more. Healing requires you to be able to experience happiness and joy. So when you truly can forgive yourself for making choices that you've made, from being young enough to allow things to happen to you that and not saying anything or doing anything about them, for allowing your small mind to be manipulated into thinking certain things, until you forgive yourself for that, you will continue to constantly punish yourself by putting yourself in those same traumas over and over again and saying, now do it differently, instead of putting yourself in a space where you get to experience happiness and joy and learning how to do that because that's something different. The second thing is that you have to resolve that you deserve joy. So if you haven't forgiven yourself and you're still holding yourself accountable for all the things that you've done in a very um, aggressive way, you're not being gentle with yourself or giving yourself grace, then you'll never think that you deserve joy. You'll never think that you actually deserve to be treated in a gentle way. You'll never think that you actually deserve to just be and exist and be accepted for the way that you are. You'll never actually go through a healing journey because you won't think that you deserve the joy on the other side of that healing. And it's funny that we say that because in reality, healing is learning how to experience joy and happiness and be able to walk in that different journey of life. Joy isn't on the other side of it. It's in it. It's in everything that we do, because we should have learned as a child to be able to experience joy regardless of what our outside circumstances were. And when we didn't learn that, then we don't know how to experience joy. We know how to cultivate a plan and pursue that plan in the midst of whatever it is, which requires the maximum effort from us. So it's asking ourselves to just be stronger and endure more, instead of saying, I resolve that I deserve joy and I refuse to put myself in places, in spaces, and with faces who do not give me that joy. That doesn't mean that relationships aren't going to be hard and that experiences aren't going to be hard, but it means that the people inside of them aren't making them hard. And so when you decide that you're going to forgive yourself for the things that you've experienced, and when you would decide that you deserve joy, that's when you'll start understanding that healing is not being stronger and pushing yourself more, but it is requiring you to make decisions like forgiveness, decisions like removing people who don't give you joy, so that you'll learn how to experience it. And that's the next part. You have to be willing and able. And this might require some strength, but it's not the same type of strength that we know, which is to allow ourselves to endure more trauma. But it may require us to have the strength to remove yourself from spaces, thoughts, habits, patterns, and perspectives that are in alignment with who you were when you were going through the traumatic experiences. Because if you no longer want to be that version of you and you want to be the healed version of you, then you have to be able to experience your life in a different way with different habits and patterns and perspectives. And until you attach yourself to the who you want to be more so than the who that you've always been, then you'll continue those patterns and not really understand how to make new ones. But when you attach yourself to, I forgive myself and I will experience peace and joy at all costs, then part of your habit will now become, I'm removing anything that steals that joy from me and that peace from me. I'm removing myself from any places and spaces and people who do not give me the ability to fully be myself and experience joy, who don't let me forgive myself but condemn me for the things that happened in my past and the person that I was, who require me to have maximum level strength and literally be in a functional freeze or fight or flight response every single day of my life. I no longer want to be that person because that's what trauma has done to me. I want to be the person who has persevered past that trauma to a place of understanding pure happiness and joy. And that means that I have to unshoulder my feeling of needing to fight for all of these things and realize that oftentimes it just means that I need to let go of a lot of things. And then the last one is, when you experience joy, when you find it, when you really truly unearth, this is what joy is. And maybe that's a conversation with your best friend. Maybe that's reading a book that you've wanted to read for a really long time. Maybe that's playing with your kids. Maybe it's going outside and just feeling the sunshine on your face. Whatever those things are, you need to collect those experiences of joy and vow that you're going to keep experiencing more of that. Hold those in your back pocket and do more of those. Because what'll start to happen is your nervous system will become unattached to the trauma that it's used to experiencing, and it will attach itself to the things that are giving you joy, because you realize that that joy of existing and feeling those things is far greater than being attached to the pattern that you're so used to. And if you can only find joy in one thing, do that one thing over and over again. If it is reading a book, then buy a whole bunch of books or join your library and make sure that you're experiencing more of those things. Don't disassociate. Don't get yourself into things that make you turn away from the reality of your life, but add things into the reality of your life that give you pure joy. And whatever that thing is for you, like I know for me, podcasts give me joy. I love to listen to them. Talking with people about their life experiences gives me joy. Watching movies gives me joy. Getting into the word gives me joy. The things that give me joy are the things that I collect, and I will do more of those things because I know that I don't have to fight to experience joy in my life, but I can allow it to happen in abundance. So if you find yourself in the space today where you're just asking for more strength to be able to endure the situation that you're in, I would encourage you to remember that you are not walking through this healing journey to be able to handle more of the trauma that you've always experienced, but that you need to pump the brakes on that and really commit to a healing journey that says, I want to experience more peace, joy, and happiness. I don't have to fight so much for that to be so. I can find that in my day-to-day life once I forgive myself, once I tell myself that I deserve to have it, and get rid of all of the things that are stealing that away from me because I'm so accustomed to the life that I used to live, and it's hard for me to go into the patterns of this life that I want to live. And if that's you today, I would encourage you to find somebody to be accountable with, have them listen to this video, say, this is exactly how I feel, share it with the people who you know it will resonate with and can help you through this journey. If that's you today, I would encourage you to really write down a list of the things that are stealing your joy, and an action plan for how to get out of those spaces, because you no longer need to deal with that just because your body is accustomed to being in that space. I would also encourage you to go to my pages, my social media pages, and follow me on there. Reach out to me directly because I would love to help you through this journey of not finding more strength to endure, but of actually unshouldering that strength that you felt like you needed to put it up that fight for, and to finding peace and joy and happiness. Thank you for tuning in. Remember that watching this video is great for knowledge gain, but also knowledge gain to not share with the world is selfish. So make sure that you share this with as many people as you know that it will resonate with. I appreciate you guys always for tuning in, and I'll see you again next time.